Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MS Pearce. This is it's not so much a breaking news, this has happened over the last 24 hours, but I just wanted to make a comment on the news that Donald Trump's ex-spiritual advisor has pled guilty to child sex abuse. Very quickly, what the story is. So Robert Morris, founder and former senior pastor of Gateway Church in Texas, who served as President Trump's Evangelical Advisory Board in 2016, pleaded guilty on Thursday to 5 felony counts of child sexual abuse. Why it matters, Morris, this is from Newsweek, formerly of Gateway, one of the largest evangelical congregations in Texas, resigned from the church last year amid the accusations. And of course, this is not the first time such things have happened, such stories have emerged. The case marks a significant development in ongoing national discussions concerning abuse within religious organizations and the challenges survivors face in seeking justice. The guilty plea and the sentencing of such a prominent religious figure casts a spotlight on the mechanisms of institutional accountability and the ongoing efforts to address sexual abuse in faith-based communities and beyond. In 2020, during a roundtable on transition to greatness event in Texas, Trump mentioned Morris along with another pastor, calling them great people. Trump added, according to archived White House remarks, great people with a great reputation. I have to say that. Great reputation. And Gateway Church, the team has been incredible in hosting us, etc., etc. Now, so why am I commenting on this? Well, I'm going to go to a comment that I've had on a thread from someone who likes to really defend Donald Trump with a typical sort of, oh, the left-wing media, legacy media is so biased, blah, 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 blah. The sort of comment like this is fairly common in the right-wing information spaces. So I'm sorry to disappoint, says Launch IT, but I'm sorry to disappoint you by asserting that there is a toxic left-wing legacy media embodied by CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, NBC, NYT, and WAPO. In other words, New York Times and Washington Post. If you are unaware of this, but instead consider them to be reliable, fair, and unbiased, you really have no legitimacy analysing US politics. But perhaps you recognise that this group is, at a minimum, biased. And this kind of comment just, it does annoy me because it's just like, oh, look at how rubbish this side is, but we're perfect type thing. Like, Fox News is the informational equivalent of Russia Today in Russia. It serves as a propaganda outlet for not just the GOP, but for Trump very personally, I think, as well. And the idea that there's a left-wing cartel, he says a toxic left-wing media, legacy media here, but then talks about them being a cartel elsewhere in this thread. And so the idea that you've got this left-wing cartel, when we would in Europe look at these as being pretty centrist, particularly like CBS, ABC and CNN, right? They are pretty centrist, and even MSNBC does not have a huge desire to platform progressives, right? It's very much corporate Democrat. Okay, so I would hugely contest that the media in the US is as he would describe them. But here's what I'm going to say, and why I'm bringing up this comment with regard to the news piece here is because if they really were some kind of Democrat left-wing biased cartel, as he has said, cabal even, you know, if they were working in unison to promote democratic politics, then you would expect them to be going absolutely nuts over this story. If Fox News got hold of a spiritual advisor or any kind of, you know, former advisor to Obama or Biden being a paedophile, Fox News would go nuts. Newsmax and OAN would go nuts. They work as a cabal, as a cartel, really, as a propaganda mouthpiece for Trump, in a way that actually the news entities that he mentions there really don't. We can see this by the complete, I mean, just look at YouTube and put in spiritual advisor Trump and then change the filters to this last week. And you've got the reporting on the story by a local TV station, by a local TV station, by a local TV station in Texas. And then that's that. Like, okay, so if all of these media outlets are just the amplification of democratic politics, then why are they not jumping on this? So then the second reason I am making this video is to say that there is an asymmetry in the media space whereby, and my advice to Democrats, and maybe this is just evidence that these aren't mouthpieces of the Democrat Party. Because if they were, there should be, if you're a Democratic strategist, you'd be saying to your cartels of media outlets that you need to do this for us. You need to go to town on this. Like, Fox would go nuts on this story. Why is MSNBC, CNN, why is it that these entities are pretty silent? Why are they not seeing this as an opportunity to attack the crap out of the Republicans and out of Trump particularly? So my advice would be, if I was a strategist for the Democrats, I would be, we need to play dirty. Not dirty as in doing things that skirt the law or kind of the moral rules and norms, but actually we need to get in the mud. And we need to do to the Republicans what the Republicans and Fox do to Democrats. You would want to see news outlets go to town and attach this kind of event and this kind of person to Trump. Talk about how Trump called this guy, a great person and having a great reputation. You need to attach that kind of evaluation, that faulty evaluation, to a sense that, Trump is not a good judge of character and dodgy people hang around with Donald Trump. That kind of thing. You need to get dirty. You need to get down, roll with the pigs here in the pigsty. Because at the moment, the kind of holier than thou positioning the Democrats is that, we're going to win on policy, we're going to win, the Republicans don't give a damn. Fox does, and Newsmax and OAN don't give a damn. They lie. I'm not saying lie, but they lie routinely to the point where Fox had to pay $788 million to Dominion, and they're embroiled in a similar case as is Newsmax with OAN. No, sorry, with a Smartmatic. For lying about the stolen election, as they would call it, in 2020, right? So they routinely lie. The whole time they are peddling misinformation and disinformation, I'd say. Now, as I said, I'm not saying that the media outlets that might be aligned with Democratic ideals more than Republican, but I don't think like CNN is the mouthpiece of the Democratic Party in the way that Fox is of the Republicans. But they shouldn't lie and they shouldn't break the rules, but they should fight dirty. They should fight. But again, this just shows that they're not the mouthpiece of the Democratic Party. But Democrats need to be throwing stuff like this out into the airwaves. This needs to be big news. It would happen the other way, times 50. And there's just like pretty much silence coming from the mainstream media. This legacy toxic media. Well, if it's so toxic, why is it not even, and by the way, I wouldn't even call this toxic. I'd say this is fair game. But why is it they're not shouting about such an obvious thing to shout about, I would have thought. So I really do contest these ideas that there's some kind of cartel of toxic left-wing legacy media. And I would throw straight back at this guy that, that I don't understand US politics when he appears to be just a Fox News advocate. And therefore he has the correct view because he watches Fox. Just honestly, like, the guy paints himself as a good faith interlocutor, but is just using this as a platform to splurge just absolutely typical, not going to listen to anyone else, la 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 la, you guys are all toxic left-wing radical leftists nut jobs. Dude, honestly, I could get that off. I could listen to that kind of rhetoric from Trump. And the point is, we're debating Trump. I don't want some just regurgitator of Trump himself. Yeah, have some nuance here, and there is no nuance, it appears. So, just a couple of couple of ways of taking this, but the end result, the kind of my clear message from this video would be, I think the Democrats and the media outlets that are sympathetic to the Democrats need to play dirty. Don't break the rules, but use stories like this against people like Trump and the GOP. And I'll tell you what, there are plenty of stories like this. Anyway, end of lesson. Toodle pips.